Alright guys, it's Chimshin, welcome to my channel. I want to give an example of what I think is a very common, completely backwards priority for deciding which piece of gear is best. So Brosexual is asking which one, this one or that one. Okay, let's look at them. The first one gives lower combat rating, it gives willpower and strength, it gives damage to enemies at full life and primary attack damage, and it has an invocation. Inflicting damage has a 2.5% chance to invoke the ancestral property, so that's a good invocation, really good invocation, and anytime you inflict damage you have a chance to trigger that ancestral property. The other one has higher combat rating, it's got willpower, what is that? It's got fortitude and willpower. Alright, so we got willpower and strength versus fortitude and willpower. This one has damage to enemies with less than 30% life and damage and critical hit damage. Okay, those are good. I think those magic properties are well, they're both good, but the first one basically is more reliant on primary attacks, and it's only the damage to full life enemies only really I mean it lasts on the first hit unless they heal themselves or something, so only really comes into play on the first hit, and then you're relying on your primary attacks. The other one is like when they have less than 30% life left, higher percent too, so damage 5%, this other one 6%, and it's to enemies with less than 30% life, and I think in PvP especially that's a lot more useful to finish players off as opposed to just having a stronger first hit on them, unless you hit them with a really strong initial blow that could like one-shot them potentially, but then their enemies are, you don't even always start out hitting them with full health. You know, people oftentimes, you know, they bandage up maybe, and maybe they were so low that it doesn't even take them to full health. Even if they do bandage for the whole duration and or use a healing potion or whatever, you know, a lot of the time people in PvP are running around not at full health, so that's why I think this first one has more limited utility. The second one's crit damage. I mean, that applies to everything, all your damage. So then let's look at the other things. So those are both 6%. That negative curse property, so now damage inflicted to enemies with maximum life reduced by 5% is the negative curse property on this. So look at that. You're deciding between one that increases the damage dealt to enemies with max life versus one that if you activate the positive curse property on it, you also get a decrease to the same thing. Okay, now basically the advice that, okay, take strength, but that's me, same. Okay, so the advice that this player is giving and that the person that asks the question is agreeing with is ignoring everything I just mentioned and focusing only on the fact that this one has strength and the other one doesn't. I mean, it's crazy that people are still weighing the presence of strength or intellect so highly over everything else. Now let's look at this guy's secondaries. Okay, so if he chose the one with strength, he'd be missing out on fortitude. So let's see what that would do, what kind of trade-off that would be. If you look at his secondaries, his armor penetration is only 859. That is super low. He's, I don't know what kind of penalty he's getting to his damage again in PvE and in PvP. You know, with the difficulty he's running, he's a level 799. I'm not sure what it seems. I don't know if he's stuck at that level. Maybe nobody's helped him with the raid or something to unlock the next difficulty. I've seen some people be stuck at 799 for that reason. But look, I mean, if I look at my secondaries, it'll tell you what it does. Okay, so when you're above that, it increases the critical hit damage you do to enemies. So I'm at 159 above for the current difficulty, which is Inferno 3 that I'm pre-farming, and my armor penetration makes my critical hits do 34% more damage to the enemies. Let's see if I remove stuff with armor penetration sources. Let's see what what being below does. Okay, so it increases the damage reduction when enemies block by 12%. Here, being just 215 below, see, mine is still pretty high. Like, his was 800 something. Let's see if I could even get, if I take this off. Man, I'd have to take off like all my gear. Let's see it. I don't know. Let me just take off everything. Just get naked. See how low I can get my my armor penetration. Okay. Man. People inspecting me gonna be like, what the hell? Why are you naked? Alright. This is for science. Okay, where's it at right now? No, still higher than his. Okay, what other sources of... well, now my resonance is 0, but my penetration is still higher than his. I can't get it to be as low as his, so it's still reducing or increasing the enemy damage reduction by blocking by 17%. His is going to be even worse. I mean, although he's lower level, so he'll be fighting in a different difficulty, content and stuff. But so my point is, this could be probably he'd probably get more damage, more on average, more damage per second, more burst, more damage on average by actually prioritizing sources of armor penetration such as fortitude on gear, as opposed to prioritizing strength. And let's see. Okay, let's look at that. Let's look at something that has strength here. Okay. Well, okay, so basically the gear that has something that increases your secondary stats like fortitude, basically it's a 1 to 10 ratio. So basically, like every 10 points of it will give only 1 point of the secondary. So there you have that ratio. And then what is it for... Okay, here I've got intelligence because I'm a intelligence user. this, we're looking at a different ratio here. So damage. So what is that ratio looking like? Between 3 and 1/3 and 1/4 of the damage that you get in it. So you get either, you know, 1/10 as much of the secondary, or 1/3 to 1/4 as much as the damage. But if you look at this, if I go re-equip on my gear, okay, let's see what kind of impact that would really make. So what do we say for this piece, for example, typical piece, like let's say a triple with intelligence on it, would it seem like, okay, a triple with intelligence on it, let's say 130 damage. What's 130 damage? I got 22,738 damage. What's 130 damage? What percentage of my damage is 130 damage? That's a very small percent. I'll calculate it later. But that's a very small percent. Versus something like on the same item, let's take that off again. The same item gives me 43 armor pen, and that could let's see what my total armor pen is. 2,502 at the moment. I should reassign these. I have them like kind of ridiculously balanced, and it's probably not the most optimal way to have them, especially since the you'll see this is 161 above, 159 above, and then 315 above and 315 above for the PvE difficulty, and some of these make a bigger difference in PvE than others. For PvE builds, I would actually recommend what would be more optimal with once you have them all above, so they're giving positive bonuses, to prioritize armor penetration over the others. For most builds, maybe potency, if you rely on a lot of harmful effects, damage over time, and debuffs and other crowd control or loss of control abilities or other things. So that's where potency can be helpful. But overall, probably still the most impactful for PvE would be armor penetration. But I would recommend having them making sure, try to have them all giving positive, benefits instead of negative before you start tweaking that, really prioritizing. Now, armor, Vabson actually made a video where he concluded that he couldn't see any effect of armor in PvE because let's see, it increases the damage reduction of blocking, but how does blocking work? So he was saying that it's because he couldn't, as far as he could tell, enemies couldn't critically hit. So let's see, where's block? To block all the damage of an enemy, it never blocks critical hits. So I don't know actually what Babson was talking about, because if you read the description of block, it's actually not about critical hits. It's about, here it says blocking all the damage. It's inconsistent, because if you look at armor, it says it increases your damage reduction by whatever amount based on your armor relative to the enemy or armor penetration, but starting with a base reduction of 50%. So these, like many cases, these in-game descriptions are inconsistent. At least one of them's got to be wrong. So that would require some testing to confirm, to figure out which one is wrong, which one's right, if one of them is right. But in any case, I think it's pretty clear that armor penetration it can be very impactful, especially in PvE. And I haven't seen any like real case made, or people arguing that it's not, because it increases your critical hit damage. Between those two items we were looking at, okay, I've lost it in chat, but it's clearly, my point is, people tend to make, in my opinion, really bad decisions based on completely bad priorities. And that is, in my experience, the most common persistent one that just does not seem to die, that of prioritizing damage over pretty much everything else. Strength or intelligence, or it's not always king. It's not always the thing that's even going to increase your damage the most. In practice, it could be armor penetration, especially if you're below or slightly above the armor of your opponent, because they do have diminishing returns. So let's see, if I take off maybe one source of armor penetration. Oh, there I'm below, so it increases the damage reduction upon blocking by what percent here? Just being 264 below by 13%. Enemy damage reduction by blocking is increased by 13% versus having that armor penetration 159 above that of my opponent increases my critical hit damage by 34%. It's important, and a lot of other things are important in gear, and just this narrow focus on strength or intelligence to increase damage directly, instead of even considering other factors that could actually cause you to do more damage in practice. I wanted to explain why I think that's just completely backwards, and I hope this helps some players make smarter decisions about their gear.